would like to introduce our last speaker, Ambassador Ka, Permanent Representative of the Gambia to the United Nations Office at Geneva, Chair of Commission on Science and Technology Development, and Vice Chair of Working Group on Data Governance, responsible data governance for member states. Thank you very much. Please welcome Ambassador Ka. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Excellencies, distinguished panelists, colleagues, and friends. I think we've just had a very insightful and brilliant intervention from our panelists. As we conclude today's critical discussion on global data and AI in the digital economy, I am struck by both the urgency, the challenges, and the opportunities before us as outlined by the panelists. The intersection of shifting geopolitics, rapid technological advancements, and the pressing needs of the global South, particularly Africa, and broadly our collective global community, demands nothing less than a reimagined approach, one rooted, as we heard from the panelists, in equity, in collaboration, in development, prosperity, and foresight. Our dialogue has illuminated the transformative potential of data and AI in reshaping the global economy, while also underscoring the urgent need to address the challenges posed by shifting geopolitics and the unique requirements of the global South, particularly Africa. The digital economy is no longer a distant vision. It is already here, driving innovation, connectivity, and opportunities, as well as prosperity. Yet, as we've heard from the panelists, the benefits are certainly not evenly distributed. The global South, particularly in Africa, faces persistent barriers, particularly as outlined by the panelists, very, very limited infrastructure, unequal access to technology, and underrepresentation in global data and AI governance, which our working group, as Peter has mentioned, the working group on data governance, managed to have diverse voice from all regions of the world in the member state representative as well as in non-member states. So we are hopeful that the inclusive voices that are put together will begin to correct the underrepresentation of the voices from the South, particularly Africa. These are not mere technical challenges, I submit, but issues of equity, sovereignty, and justice, as again Peter mentioned, the importance of our mindfulness on data justice and the risking data colonization. In the context of shifting geopolitics, we must recognize that data is power, it is control, and it is competitiveness. The control of data, particularly data flows, AI algorithms, and digital infrastructure, shapes economic and political destinies. The global South, particularly Africa, must not be left on the margins of all conversations related to data and AI governance. It must be at the center because majority of humanity resides in the global South. To reimagine a truly inclusive global digital economy, we must prioritize, as I've heard from the panelists, capacity building, which means we must invest in digital literacy, skills, and infrastructure in the global South to meaningfully and truly bridge the digital divide. 2, we must also ensure that governance is inclusive and mindful. We must ensure that the Global South has a seat at the table in shaping AI and data policies, fostering trust and accountability. Without it, we will create a challenge in front of us. I also had our panelists mention ethical AI. We must ensure, I submit that we must ensure we develop frameworks that respect our cultural diversity, as was mentioned by one of the panelists. We must protect human rights, and we must embrace a human-centric approach and prevent exploitation in our efforts. We must also make sure that there is meaningful and mutually beneficial partnerships, not just partnerships for the sake of partnerships that are cosmetic or sugar-coated. We must strengthen the North-South and South-South collaboration to truly and meaningfully share knowledge, create knowledge together, resources, and innovation. Some of the key takeaways that I will leave you with, let me highlight 3 key pivotal themes from what I gather from our collective discussion today by the panelists. I gather that digital technologies or digital economy is no longer just a technical or economic issue. I think we have to be very clear about that. It is indeed a geopolitical one, and I submit that. Data flows, AI governance, and infrastructure investments are increasingly shaped by strategic competition. Yet we must ensure this does not come at our cost or at the cost of fragmentation or exclusion or exploitation. We are very worried about that, and we must ensure that all our efforts de-risk that expectation and bring trust in our efforts. The imperative of inclusion. The Global South, specifically Africa, cannot remain an afterthought or a footnote in the AI and data discourse or revolution. We had compelling calls for capacity building, fairer data governance, and technology transfer to truly and meaningfully bridge the digital divides in these areas. We must act on them, and for them not to be mere rhetoric. Multilateralism and stakeholderism must be reimagined. A fractured world cannot solve these challenges alone. We need to renew multilateral frameworks through meaningful collaborations with all stakeholders, whether it is in AI ethics, whether it is in human-centric and human rights approaches, or whether it is in cross-border data rules, whether it is on data stewardship or data sovereignty and self-determination, or data justice, or our efforts to de-risk data colonization, financing for digital public goods, and digital public infrastructure. We must together establish the guardrails, the norms for public interest that prioritize solidarity over a zero-sum competition. I call for an action for us to move forward. I urge 3 commitments. 1, our efforts from principles to meaningful and adaptive practices. Let's translate all these high-level AI and data governance principles into meaningful and adaptable, actionable policies, particularly for our most vulnerable economies and communities and the Global South. The United Nations Global Digital Compact, I submit, must be a vehicle for this and requires all of our collective optimism and efforts to action them, to operationalize them. 2, innovative, impactful, and sustainable investment in the Global South's agency, which means that not just access to technology. We want more than access. We want ownership. to support our local growing and evolving AI ecosystem, to enable them and facilitate for them to build productive capacities and not just at the consuming continuum. Data literacy and startups to ensure innovation is by and for the South. I think this is very important as we move forward. Lastly, constructive and meaningful dialogue with inclusive and diverse voices over division. In our world today of competing tech blocks, political blocks, we must sustain inclusive forums such as this one that is being wonderfully and brilliantly organized, one that will help all of us to find common grounds on standards, on security, and on human-centric and human rights approaches. Our efforts will not be cheap. I know we are in times of budgetary issues and challenges, but our efforts requires investment to put teeth and substance and meaningfulness to our efforts. Not only saying that we need digital infrastructure, we must invest in that, but more importantly, we must invest in people, in skills, in research, and in local adaptive innovative ecosystem. So it calls for meaningful, reliable partnerships based on mutual respect and shared benefits, and to adhere to global norms that reflect our collective diversity, fairness, and the voice of all regions. I have some final reflections. One is ECOSOC stands as a beacon of multilateralism. We must leverage this platform to advocate for a digital economy that empowers all nations, leaving no member state behind. The stakes are huge, but also so is our collective resolve. But I believe together we can build a future where data and AI will serve a tool for shared prosperity and not division. The digital economy we build today will shape and enable development, power, and equality for decades. There was something I've heard earlier, which is this issue of data as oil. I will leave you with some provocative thoughts on that. I must say the data as the new oil analogy tends to oversimplify and often misrepresents the true nature of data. And here is some perspectives I will share. And I provoke, and I will say, data is not the new oil. And I meant that sincerely. It's more like sunlight or water, an abundant, renewable resource whose value truly depends on how it is collected, how it is shared, how it is interpreted, and how it is governed. So data is not rivalrous. Using it doesn't deplete it. It gains value through context and analysis and not consumption like oil. It can empower or oppress depending on governance, access, and intent. If misused, it has huge ethical implications, particularly around privacy, bias, and surveillance. Therefore, we need all voices in our efforts for a global data governance that may not be optimal, but close to optimality for the greater good, for the greater public interest. I must thank you once again and thank the brilliant panelists, the ECOSOC leadership, and Odette, and all of you for engaging us on this vital conversation. Let's continue to collaborate, to innovate, and to reimagine not just the future of data and AI, but the future that we all want. And we can only do that through our constructive and meaningful engagement, where we actively listen to all voices. No one has the monopoly of ideas or what is right for the world. I believe that together, particularly if we listen to those who are at the other continuum, who do not yet have the capacity or the infrastructure or the know-how, it doesn't mean that they are not capable or incompetent to do so. And it will be a mutually beneficial partnership if all these voices come together. It will be a win-win for the global community. And I thank you all for this wonderful